How can we stop? Only when we have to ensure their presence in all, either in the grid management or in electricity board utilities. What is their demand? If someone is talking on the smart grid, most of the time you will find that they are talking about these protocols, they are talking about this electronic interfacing. Advanced electrical engineering, as in electrical engineering, our states, they find some kind of involvement in the electronic circuitry or kind of computers, they fail to understand, because they are taught, basically they are taught electrical machines and power systems and other traditional subjects. Even with the smart grid, our students are not very, very comfortable. Number of lectures are available in the NPTEL. I would like to request all the faculty members to go through the NPTEL lectures and what are the new incoming lectures available, like on electric vehicle, or it is a cyber security, or it is a smart grid. They must learn and should not be dependent on the other departments. If you have a talk with Dr. Agnihotri, he has visited several times to RGPV. He has given a talk on this, what is the application of cyber security on a smart grid and how that can be prevented. So that is all the areas where electrical engineer has got a good, and we have to, we have to make ourselves in tune with the time where we can prove our existence in all such areas. This is the tough time for electrical engineering itself. You can see that 62 participants had shown their willingness to join a very, very good topic on energy management and smart grid. Whereas if I can see if it is on deep learning or machine learning, Python, sometimes it goes beyond 100, 150, 200 like this. So this is showing somewhere it is not only that the students are responsible, somewhere we teachers are also equally responsible for not providing enough awareness, and that awareness should be given in such a manner, in such a language, so that the students can understand that what is their utility in the electrical industries. And only this MATLAB will not help to implement any project on implement. Let us see that what the hardware can be implemented, and the very new equipments are trainer kits are available with the RGPV under TechTube Research Hub has been established, and there you will find that equipment like Opal Heart, which is costing around 70 lakhs, that is also available with us. Let you motivate your students, encourage students to visit our RGPV lab and work on this Opal RT or DSpace or any PSCAT. All such wonderful softwares and hardwares are available. Still, I fail to understand why our electrical faculty are not motivating their teachers, not motivating their electrical students, or electrical students are not getting motivated that they should come and this is what. If you think that organizing one-day workshop on smart grid and the students and teachers will learn, unless they should have a feel of this, you can organize a similar workshop all the times. If you are organizing the workshop on this smart grid and without getting a feel of this, will not be able to get our target. So I request all the management even that if you really want to work on the smart grid, please do something. Please acquire some kind of skill, some kind of expertise at that level where you can also speak something on the smart grid and the cyber security or whatever the new areas coming up in electrical engineering. Then the students will take interest in electrical engineering. I hope that under accuracy, definitely, because it is now, we are at the end of the month. September is the last date of project, and before that you will be organizing a similar programs and let the students participate and empower themselves along with the teachers as well. And I thanks to Jain Saab that he is taking interest. Study he was present today, he also present, and he shows his interest in the academics. And probably whenever I meet Professor Jain, he always talks about this academic, that academic improvement can be done in institute. So thank you very much, Jain Saab. And
thank you, sir.
And I thanks to coordinator Dr. Rakeshri and Principal Yas Khan for taking all such interest to coming on this platform. And the most important that our speaker, Dr. Prashant Agnihotri, who has been very, very kind enough. Whenever we ask any time from him, he's always ready to provide something, his academic expertise to the RGP. He's very, very interested, and we must take his advantage of being connected with this stage. Once again, thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Dr.
Over to you, Raghav.
As I have already given some introduction about our Honorable Engineer Shri, Honorable Co-Chairman Engineer Shri K.C. Jain sir, now I would request our Co-Chairman sir to provide some wise thoughts, after which we will start with our proceedings. Sir, please.
Thank you, Gurpreet, and thank you, Chaubey sir, for your encouraging and very good speech. Simply, before you start your session, I would like to say something on this, especially grid control, grid management, energy management, etc. Actually, what now students are learning is only the theoretical portion of the grid and energy management. None of the students and none of the even faculty, I'm sorry to tell, do not know ABCD about the practical operation of the grid. How grid is operated, what type of grids are there, national grid, international grid, state grid, local grid, what cascade effect on the grid, how grid is controlled when there is sudden loading on the system, how grid is controlled with sudden cutoff of the load. These all parameters can be learned only and only when you go to the power station, when you go to the national load dispense center, when you go to the state load dispense center, and actually study practically system there. So I would like to request, especially Dr. Chaubey sir, that whenever next webinar is there, please invite some experts from the utility. I can suggest good number of names who have devoted their entire life in grid control. So it will be very useful for the faculty as well as the student. And further, I will request all the faculty to, you are very lucky that in Bhopal you have all the facility available to study. So please visit state load center, state grid center, national grid center, all is available in Bhopal. And if anyone want any help, I can extend all type of help. I wish you all the best for all your successful of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
For the forenoon session, we have amongst us Professor Dr. Prashant Agnihotri as keynote speaker. Dr. Prashant Agnihotri is an assistant professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering, IIT Bhilai. He obtained his MS degree in Electrical and Electronics Engineering in 2010 from University of North Dakota, USA, and PhD in Power Systems in 2016 from University of Manitoba, Canada. He has published more than 10 research papers in various reputed journals and conferences. His area of interest includes application of power electronics, microgrid dynamics and control, machine learning and AI applications in power system, etc. Now I would request Professor Dr. Prashant Agnihotri to take charge from here and provide knowledge to the faculty which can be used in their near future. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to first of all thank you, the principal, Dr. Khan. Very good morning to Dr. Chaubey sir. It is always a pleasure to see you. And also to Jain sir from MPEB. And thank you very much to the Trinity College to provide me this opportunity to talk to you people regarding the smart grids. Okay. Let me just try to open the slides over here. Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir. We can see.
So just go in the full screen mode now.
Okay, sir. It is visible, sir.
Yeah. So Now, before we start going into the discussions on smart grid, first thing that I completely agree with the Mr. Jain sir from MPEB, that it is also important that we should have some practical perspective from the grid side, how the grid side control is being done, what are the practical experiences these people have got. Because smart grid, essentially, if we say, is it's a very niche topic, and not many experts from the practical application side are available right. Okay. There are various levels in which the uh, there are various levels at which the implementation is going on. It is on the development of infrastructure, um, whether it is from the side of development of communication technology to improve the smart grid. But I think it's a very good suggestion from Jain sir that RGPB should try to collaborate with the Madhya Pradesh Electricity Board for the National Load Dispatch Center as well as the State Load Dispatch Center, so that the students as well as the faculty members get practical experiences of see that how the grid control is done on the ground. And people these areas also. Now, this is the first observation from my side. Second observation is that which Chaubey sir basically just explained, that according to his experiences and his own, is that we should have more and more programs in the electrical engineering side, basically, and unprecedented amount of people have been attending the deep learning and machine learning sessions which have been organized by TechWeb. I just saw that yesterday you also had in Trinity College one deep learning session, and I have absolutely no problems in people attending a large number in machine learning and deep learning. Okay. But having said that, people should try to understand that this machine learning and deep learning are nothing but tools. Okay. And you need certain domain knowledge to apply these tools. For example, suppose for somebody, let's say their bike is broken, okay, their motorcycle is broken. Until unless the person knows that exactly in which part of the motorcycle the problem is, they will not be able to choose the tool which we should use to open that particular part, isn't it? So the idea should not be that we should just use tools, all the tools available to us, and just try to open everything. This is not the way how any servicing guy does if he wants to rectify the problem in a bike. So what they know is they know the domain, they know the working of the bike, and then later on they know that, okay, for this particular problem, maybe we can use this tool. So remember that machine learning or deep learning are nothing but your tools. Tools which can help you to rectify any problem in your domain, which is electrical. Now, it may just so happen that these tools can be applied to various other fields. I'm not just saying to biomedical, chemistry, physics, anything. But remember one thing, that until unless you know the domain knowledge, the tools, the knowledge of the tools itself may not be of any use. So that's why I always say that whenever the person is learning about machine learning, deep learning, try to implement project with some domain in your knowledge. Okay, so if you are a computer science people, you can always learn machine learning and deep learning, and then try to solve some problem, maybe the distributed generation. Maybe you can just try to develop some new algorithms for the machine learning or try to improve upon the optimization technique. That is the job for the computer science people. When we talk about mechanical people, then you can say that of course they can always learn about machine learning and deep learning techniques, but they can always apply these techniques. For example, let's say in automation sector in the mechanical engineering, or let's say nowadays a big area which is coming in is building automation. So they can use it there for management. In electrical engineering, I can give you number of examples. For example, in load forecasting, in fault identification, classification, then load aggregation problems, trying to identify the customer size, clustering, various kind of applications that you can machine learning. But having said that, please remember my suggestion that you can always learn the tool, but it is important that you should know that in which domain you are going to apply the tool. Just learning the tool itself will not make your life easy. And believe me that in the industry also, when you just write on your resume, and this is for the student who are looking for the jobs, when you're just writing for the resume that on a resume that you know machine learning, you know deep learning, you know different kind of optimization techniques, you know SVM, PCA, you know linear regression, various kind of decision tree classifier, k-means. You can list all the machine learning techniques, but they will ask you one simple question: where have you implemented this? Okay, how the data was collected? Was the data clean? What was the use of using this machine learning or deep learning techniques when state-of-the-art techniques are also available? So you have to understand that we should not just blindly go to apply these techniques. So it is good to have, good to hear that there are many days of the domain knowledge also. Okay. So having said that, I think we will start with our discussion on the smart grid. So when we look into the smart grid nowadays, so we can see the two sections. There's electricity, which is mainly, you can say, unidirectional in nature. So we have centralized power plants and the electricity through the into various sectors, whether it is commercial, whether it is industrial sectors. But now you are seeing that there are a lot of other components are coming into picture. For example, now we have the people or the industries or even the small commercial buildings which have rooftop photovoltaics. So rooftop photovoltaics, PV panels, you all must have heard that it is coming up in a big way. We recently saw a very big solar farm being inaugurated by our Prime Minister in Madhya Pradesh. And you can see that there are a lot of others that from rooftop photovoltaics. We can see that many initiatives have been taken to create the wind farms and rest of the other renewable generation. For example, the biogas, biomass, these are also renewable generations which are coming into the picture. So the idea is that our centralized generation is no more centralized now. We have a distributed generation. And when we have distributed generation, then we know that for any stability of the grid, the knowledge about the load and the generation is critical. Because previously what used to happen, if your load is changing, which tends to change, which is called as a load profile. So you'll see that generally you have two peaks in the day. One is in the morning time, another one is evening time. And based on those peaks, you will see that the generation is changed based on the order of merit. I will talk about that later in this session. But now, so previously, the communication was not that much required. Even if a unidirectional communication is there, in which you have the information about the load which is being consumed at one end, based on that information, you can control your generation. But now the things are changing. You even have generation at the domestic end, at the consumer end. Okay. So we need to have information about that. Second thing is that many times you will see that the consumers, they want to play a major role in the smart grid. So basically, the idea is to empower the consumer. So consumers should be very actively participating in both generation, whether it is through solar PV or at a commercial level, maybe it is a wind farm owner who also wants to feed his power into the grid. So could be that way. Another one is the consumer should be participating in the form of demand response, because although in India we have a flat kind of a tariff, but in many North American countries, even in European countries, we have this incentive-based demand response programs where based on the time slab that you have in a day, the different pricing of the electricity is decided. So depending on which time slab you're using your electricity, if there is a peak demand going on, then maybe your electricity price will be higher. So in that case, what you can do is you can tell your customers that will give you incentives if you don't use the power at that particular time, and you shift your certain loads which are non-critical nature to some other time slab in which the price is not that high. Now, this time slab I will be talking about later also. This could vary from maybe 5 minutes to 15 minutes to even several hours, and that depends basically on the planning stage. So the idea is that even the consumer should be able to respond to this incentives or the peak shaving. Okay, so in the peak times, if you want to shave the power, why we need to shave the power during the peak time, we'll discuss in the later slides. But previously, you can see that in the previous electricity, this whole structure, there was a very little participation from the customer side. So we need to change that now. We need to have more and more participation from the customer side, and that is the main, you can say, the sole idea of having the smart grid. I think somebody's microphone is on. So I'm not sure who is this. This is Ankit Kushwaha.
Sir, I have muted him.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So going further, I mean, so when we talk about the smart grid, so basically you can see that, as I just said, that we need to have, we need to keep the consumer in the central picture. So we need to have communication with the consumer also. And basically this communication needs to be integrated well in the smart grid architecture. So that's why I say that this the integration of information technology and advanced communication is very critical. And why we need to do this? Because we need to increase the system efficiency and the cost effectiveness. For example, when I just started about talking about the peak power at which the system is working, then we know that during the peak power, not only the price may be high, but also your system is pretty much working in right at the I should say um, uh, right at the very high levels of power flows through the transmission lines or at the verge of the stability level. Okay, so if there is any strong disturbance that can occur at when the systems are working at their max limits, or if not at the max limit, maybe close to the max limits, then the system is quite prone to some kind of disturbance or even stability performance issues. So the idea is that if you empower the customer to shape the loading at that particular time, then there is a very high chance that you can improve the system's efficiency. Okay, there will be less strain on your not only on the generation side but also on the transmission side. The consumer also need to manage their energy use, and this was not done previously, but nowadays you can see there are a lot of applications which are coming up. There are various companies which provide you a home automation system where you can monitor the usage of all your equipments, right from your television, air conditioner, to your microwaves, fridge, everything. You have the possibility to look into the energy usage, and based on the energy usage, you can even plan to have the energy usage at the time where maybe the electricity price is low. So you can customize that in certain fashion. Um, it also improves the reliability, resiliency, and the power quality. Why I'm talking about reliability and resiliency is power quality is something we can discuss um, from the power electronics point of view, that how it is integrated into the power system. But when we talk about mainly about reliability and resiliency, see nowadays you can see that the whole world is facing this big challenge of COVID-19, and one can understand that how critical operation of hospitals and the equipments in the hospital is. For example, any patient who is right now on a ventilator, they cannot accept to have even a glitch in our power grid where the supply fails to power the critical loads in the hospital, which could be life-threatening in nature. Okay? So the idea is that when you have this kind of distributed generation, for example, when you have maybe solar PV based some neighborhood which is providing certain amounts of energy, then there is a possibility that even if the centralized location is centralized generating stations are facing any issues, uh, then at times this small patches of grids which are available and which are also called as microgrids. Okay, so because these are like small grids among the big grids, so these microgrids is also coming in a big way now. So these will be able to provide the power to your critical loads, and that's how you can improve the reliability as well as the resiliency of this entire system. Okay, when you say about power quality, you might have heard a lot of uh, ways to improve the power quality. It is mainly through power electronics based systems. So it could be through STATCOMs, SVCs, where you have the reactive power based methods to supply the reactive power. It could be load compensation or even the harmonic removal from the system. So these are also quite important from the smart grid point of view. So you can have all three of them. Okay. Um, and of course, we can use the use of innovative technologies, including renewable storage and electric vehicles. Um, can somebody say something about the storage and electric vehicles? They are somehow related, but there is a very unique way the electric vehicles differentiate themselves from the storage. Does somebody want to comment on this? Storage and electric vehicles. Storage, we all know that the best possible example I can give is batteries. So batteries with certain capacities, when you have renewables in your system, if the renewables, they are mainly intermittent in nature. Wind, sometime it is blowing, sometimes it is not blowing. Sun, it is only available in the daytime, it is not available in the night time. Even in the rainy days, you can assume that the sun may not be available, due to which the solar panel may not be available to generate um, electricity. Okay, so in that case, what we can do is that whenever you have excess energy, you just store it into the batteries. What about electric vehicles? Well, electric vehicles also have batteries in them, so you can store the energy into the batteries. But one of the very good thing about electric vehicles, they are pretty much like movable storages. Okay. And this concept is very unique. Recently, in one of the conferences, I saw one study that was being done by a group of researchers, where they were actually seeing that when at a particular DER level, how they can improve the inertia of the system using the storage. And the idea was that if you can move the storage from one point to another point, then the distance from where the storage is providing the power into the grid becomes less. Okay, and when this distance becomes less, you know that I square R losses, where R is directly proportional to the length of the transmission line alone. So you will see that whenever there is a small distance between the load and the supply, you will see that I square R losses will be minimized. So not only they were minimizing the losses, they were able to provide a quick boost to the inertia of the system. Now, why this inertia is important, let's not worry about that at this point in time. But generally, just want to give a word of caution that with the renewable, it looks very attractive. It's a very good option to save our climate. But one thing we have to take it with a pinch of salt, that it lacks the inertia. Okay, so in the state-of-the-art generating stations which were based on fossil fuels, coals, you have these synchronous generators with big rotors. Okay, and they have very high inertia. And when they have very high inertia, any amount of small disturbances um, will not be able to disturb the grid at a high level. Okay. So you will see that when the inertia is the changes in the grid frequency will be smaller, as well as the deviations in the rotor angle will be smaller. Okay. But when you have very small inertia into the system, you will see that even a small load can greatly change the frequency. As a result of which, the control of the smart grid becomes very challenging with the penetration of more and more renewables. Now, so basically what we have is we have this so why we have this smart grid. So you can see that that various drivers and challenges or benefits can be reaped out of the smart grid. Now, drivers are of course very well known. For example, smart grid as one driver. I just told you that we need to empower our customers. Then second driver could be we need to integrate more and more renewable energy. Since the renewable energies are integrated, which can also inject power into the grid, we need to have we can we can see that the challenge is that we should have more sophisticated reduce T&D losses, which is very crucial for the Indian portal. So these are the drivers. Okay. Challenges, of course, we can see that I just told you that these renewables are fluctuating in nature. Then whatever the consumption which is going on, for example, smart buildings, rooftop solar, electric vehicles, the loads, the consumption models which are coming, they are always changing. Okay, so how you are aggregating these models to show it in your simulation, they need to be decided. Okay. Similarly, you can see that there is a lot of customer expectations are increasing. Okay, so it is when I say customer expectation are increasing, it is not about that customers should have electricity 24/7. Okay, that's not the expectation I'm talking about. I'm talking about the clean power which is coming from the grid side, or maybe it is from the microgrid side, with very less fluctuations. Okay? And the power quality should be good, because nowadays you will see a lot of loads are very prone to these high fluctuations in the voltages, which may disturb their operation and may even be detrimental to their health of these equipments. So we are not just talking about 24/7 power, we are talking about 24/7 power with a good power quality. And then of course there are challenges, because nowadays when there's challenges such as standards and interoperability. For example, somebody might say that, okay, I want to have a PV system installed in our system, where in my commercial building, where whenever I am having some excess power, I should be able to feed into the grid. So who will decide that this particular commercial building has excess power? Well, you can have smart meters, which have inbuilt facility to communicate with all the loads which are connected in that building, and then it can also collect the information about the power which is generated by this PV source. Whenever the source is generating power than the load consumption, the smart meter can flash um, that we have excess power and now we are ready to feed the power into the grid. So definitely the smart meter also need to communicate somewhere with the distribution and that we have excess power and we want to feed into the grid. So um, it needs to have proper standards and mechanisms through which it can talk. Okay. It can talk into the gateway and then start feeding the power. Now, as I said, that these smart meters, they could be from different vendors also. It is not necessary that it is coming only with standard. So that if sometimes the PV installation which you have, if you remove the smart meter and then maybe change it with some more sophisticated one, or you just want to replace it with some other company's smart meter, they should be interoperable and they should work on a common standard. So as I said that the things may look very good from the outer side, but there are a lot of challenges in this. Um, Having said that, as I was previously describing that this communication technology is playing a major role. So this information and communication technology, which is commonly known as ICT, uh, it is one of you can say the backbone of the smart grid, because it is the one which is sitting on top and connecting from the different entities. So what are the different entities we'll look later in this presentation, but it is like the backbone for the entire thing. So the idea is that this ICT itself is changing very rapidly. You can see previously we used to have 4G, now we are going to 5G, and even the standards and in the communication technology are very quickly changing. But unfortunately, in our grid side in the power system, adoption is slightly slow, because because there are various stakes are very high. We don't want to quickly replace the yard infrastructure with the new ones. For example, if somebody says that, okay, remove the existing SCADA system and then replace it with a new one, which is a load on more flexibility in terms of operation and operability, that may not be very easy, because the SCADA system is controlling a lot of different equipments in the load center maybe, and then just changing that entirely may require a lot of new infrastructure upgradation, which may not be very easy. So we always have to think about in a way that how with the existing state of the art infrastructure we can use the modern methods or the upcoming technology to improve existing systems. So there are various schemes which are available from the government of India, and maybe Jain sir can also throw some light on it later to you people. But uh, there's various schemes include like RAPDRP program, which is for from the GUI to improve the distribution system. This RAPDRP program from the government, what they basically do, they give grants to improve the distribution system, where the existing system is there. Plus, on the top of that, you can add some new more things. So, so this is about why we need the smart grids. Now, when we say about drivers, are these drivers common for all different smart grids? The answer is no. That depends on which country you are in. It can even depend on area. For example, in one particular country or area, they may see that the driver is mainly to meet the growing demand and manage the T&D loss not a big in there. So they can simply go with this particular driver and they don't have to think much about the T&D losses. In some other areas, you will see that their infrastructure is very old and it is overstressed. So the main driver for including the smart grid is that we should have mechanisms in place where we should be able to predict the health of the existing infrastructure. And if there is any stress or the infrastructure, for example, transformers or some other generators, they are coming close to their age limit, then we should remove them, okay, and replace them with the new ones. So for some smart grids, so these could be the levels. So as I said, the levels could be may change even by the country, by the area. Okay. So we have to keep that in mind. So when we talk about smart grid, as we see that nowadays uh, we have more and more infrastructure development going on. Many schemes from the government are available to do the upgradation. But the idea is that basically in the state of the art techniques, we have very limited choice generation side all the way to the consumer end. For tracking the flow of the power. We mainly used to have analog controls, which have its own demerits, and the maintenance was also not very good. So the self-healing mechanism, which is there now, where now they are able to quickly identify not even what kind of classification of the fault is there in the system, and the location where the fault is there. And then there is also a possibility that based on the level of the fault, the relays may try to just operate themselves so that it can remove the affected part from the grid and rest of the other part is still intact, which is called as nothing but the self-healing. And we can have more and more digital controls. We can have more pervasive monitoring. As I said that we now don't have just one-way communication, but the two-way communication. So when we talk about tomorrow's smart grid, then the idea is that we have a two-way flow of electricity, not just electricity, but also the information. So we need to have intelligent infrastructure in place. Is there because smart grids can have physical measurement units. We can have wide area measurement system with PDCs and all, which can collate on the information and then take some intelligent decisions. Okay. For example, one of the ways which where we can use the smart grid is to develop the infrastructure so that we can enable the consumers. Okay. For example, in many areas right now, also you might see that some person want their house to meter reading. Now, although many houses they have now electricity meters, but still somebody has to come to take the meter reading. So the idea is that we have a AMR technique, which is called as automatic meter reading, where the smart meter itself are able to communicate to the distribution center so that they can uh, get the kilowatt hour reading. Okay, so how this modern ICT can help. Okay. At the same time, if there is any tampering into your system, then is it possible to deal with it? So this kind of intelligent things can be done. So as I was saying that previously when we had some serial kind of communication where there was just one communication going all the way from generation, transmission, distribution to the consumer. There was no back way. Okay. But now the generation the customer always has the opportunity to talk to distribution. It can also have opportunity to talk to customer. It can also have opportunity to talk to generation. So we can have this entire mechanism, but the idea is that we should have infrastructure and ways to enable that particular thing. Okay. So this is very crucial. Okay. So as we say, rather than having a one-way communication, we need to have a two-way communication, and they can be at different levels, and the utilities can advance the smart grid to any of these areas. We should have smart generation, smart transmission, distribution is also smart, as well as the smart consumer. Okay. Now, when we say the smart consumer is able to even talk to the generation and to have smart generation, then what I mean by that, for example, as a customer, um, we don't have much independence to choose from where we should get our power. Okay. For example, whenever you are going to a shop to buy clothes, you always have the independence that you can go from one shop to another shop, or you can go from one brand to another brand. If you're ordering food from some company, let's say from Zomato, you have um, choice to order food from one restaurant to another restaurant, and you can make your choice depending on the reviews. You can make your choice depending on the ratings which these restaurants have. So my question is, why not the same thing in electricity or in power consumption? For example, in power consumption, why I don't have any choice to get power maybe from a certain generation? So, for example, if somebody is generating power, solar PV based system is there in front of um, my apartment building, or there is a generation light on my apartment building of it, then why I should always keep on taking power from the utility side? There is a possibility I can have some sort of smart generation to see that to communicate my need, that okay, this is my load profile for a month or so, and I need this much power. So are you able to provide me this much power from the solar panel itself? So in that way, you can have the smart generation where the generation itself will adapt, where you can get the power from the PV side whenever there is whenever the sun is shining. You can generate the power from PV, you can get power from there, and in the other time you can get the power from the storage. So that we can always think about all these various scenarios, but we should have infrastructure in place. Okay, and which is basically online ledgering system. The problem is that whenever you are getting the power from the utility side, whether it is Madhya Pradesh Electricity Board, or in Chhattisgarh we have CSPDCL, uh, we get power from them. So in this case, we have a fixed mechanism that if you give us this much power, then you will have this much billing. Okay. We have all the infrastructure in place. But when we are talking about different things, for example, electricity coming from PV panels sitting on the top of a roof of a building, how is it possible to decide about the billing? How about it is possible to monitor that okay, this is this much power the PV is supplied to us, and this much power is something which we have consumed, so we should get the bill from this much amount of unit consumption. So all these things are very crucial. So a lot of different techniques are now coming up slowly, even for the monitoring and measuring and peer-to-peer energy transfer mechanism. For example, blockchain in conjunction with microgrid is coming in a big way. Okay. Discussion on these parts. Um, but as I said that the infrastructure development needs to be there to enable all this, enable all the to reap the benefits of this market. And Okay, so the next topic is that how we can have what are the different components of the smart grid. So we always said that there is a smart generation, okay? And we can use the smart generation to optimize the energy generation based on the feedback. So we can say that as a as a customer, you may have the choice to say, okay, I want the electricity, but I want only the clean electricity. So you should simply provide me the electricity from the PV panels or from the wind generation. Okay. You can also maybe have a choice, uh, um, and this choice is coming from the consumer side, by the way. So that based on that, the generation is changing. Uh, you can make a choice that okay, I want this much amount of power from PV or this much amount of power from the grid side. So based on that, we need to come up with some sort of optimized way of energy generation based on the feedback, and this feedback is coming from various customers, where the feedback is aggregated at the distribution and it's being communicated to the generation side. Then the smart grid needs to have smart substations where they need to not only monitor but also control the substation from the remote location. We are having these kind of things in place right now. For example, with the SCADA system and all, you can monitor the system. But the idea is that even with the development of new technologies like VAMs and PMUs, you can see that some amount of real power or reactive power modulation can be used to even stabilize the systems. Now, how a particular substation is able to communicate with the another substation which may be facing some voltage or power fluctuations? Is there a possibility? So we need to have substations which are not just controlling the um, uh, local equipments, local power flows, but also it is able to communicate with the rest of the substations, and they collectively are able to do some way to tackle with the stability issues. Okay, and we should have smart transmission and distribution. We can have the self-healing capability. Okay, we should be able to identify what kind of fault has occurred on the system, because it's symmetrical, asymmetrical kind of fault. Not only this, we should have the mechanism to identify the location of the fault also, so that the self-healing mechanism can be used to isolate the faulty part. We can have the smart energy meters, which enables the two-way communication from the consumer and the seller. Okay. For example, there is the need of the time is that we should have something where the tampering of the tampering of the meters can be handled properly. For example, if there is any tampering which is being done on the meter, somebody is just trying to forcefully tamper the meter, immediately a signal should go to the utility side or at the distribution side, that at this particular location, smart meter, there has been attempt to tamper with the smart meter. Then smart appliances at the consumer, and also the consumer should have the capability to decide that what should be the ideal time to, to use the appliances. For example, in California, um, you have this mechanism where your appliances can can continuously monitor price schedule, and based on that, um, the equipments or the appliances are able to operate during the time where there is um, the electricity price is not that high. Okay. And the reason why I say it is not just because you can have the cost benefit, but also from the efficiency and the stability benefit, which I discussed earlier. So now one thing we were discussing that how this the electricity price should vary with time. So we have said that generally um, in ideal situation, I think it should vary continuously with the time, which is nothing but called as the real time pricing or dynamic pricing. Okay, but generally, you can see that you can have the time slows which are varying from few minutes to hours. For example, in Australian power market, you can see that the price changes every 5 minutes. But in India, you will see that the price changes for every 15 minutes or so. So, and there is something which is called as the time of use (TOU), time of use tariff, which are the blocks of time where the electricity price is same. For example, there could be 4 to 5 blocks in the entire day, or you can have even multiple blocks for which you will say that okay, in this particular block, the electricity price will remain same. And not only this, why the price should vary only with time is can you can you think about any other parameter on which the electricity price should vary? Okay, so anyone, if you want to comment on this, do you think there should be any other parameter on which the electricity price should vary apart from time? Anyone? Anyone here who thinks that the price should vary not only with time but with some other parameter? Okay, how about the parameter like place, okay, or the location? For example, do you think that the price should vary with the location where the load is there? For example, how about a hilly area where the transmission and distribution is quite difficult to reach, and we have to have special mechanisms to transfer the power. Okay. So in that region, of course, you can say that the electricity price should vary with the place also. So it should not only be time variant, it should maybe also place variant. There are various countries which are trying to act upon that. So these are basically these are the basically various stakeholders. Um, but before we go into this stakeholder business and discuss this, it's a bit of complicated figure. So before we go into that, there are a few more things which I would like to touch upon. Um, that how it is different. We have been talking about so many things. For example, there should be smart transmission, smart distribution, smart substations, and for example, in the smart distribution itself, for example, we have decided some distribution system have decided to update their particular infrastructure. Okay, I've been talking about this updating the infrastructure quite a lot in this presentation. But let's say somebody has decided, some distribution system has decided to upgrade the distribution system and need to acquire new infrastructure. Now the idea is that can they just do it like that? Isn't there a hierarchy through which the proper approvals should be done? Because see, whenever any distribution entity they are trying to improve their infrastructure, eventually it has to be sanctioned by Electricity Regulatory Commission, which is in India, which we have CERC, which is the Centralized Electricity Regulatory Commission. And also in each state, you will have one regulatory commission. For example, in Maharashtra, you have Maharashtra Electricity Regulatory Commission. So what they do is they decide the tariff. Because whenever any entity want to improve their infrastructure, they need to recover the price of whatever their investment is over the time. That they will be able to gain that price by making some changes in the tariff. Now, is this change in the tariff justifiable? Okay. And, is it justifiable in terms of that the consumer should not simply blindly pay any amount of money? It should be regularized. So this regulatory commission actually takes care of that. So in the next slide, I will show you the complete hierarchy. But some other features which are also important from the regulatory commission is that there is a proper welfare not only for the transmission and distribution side but also for the consumer. So it should not happen that generally this distribution side is the least updated one. You can see a lot of infrastructure and investment goes into the generation and even for the transmission is there, but distribution is the most neglected. So because all these problems communicated to billing issues, tampering of the meters, loss of power for certain consumers, lack of proper connectivity, and then T&D loss. So they all come into the distribution space. So this is the most neglected section in the power system. The idea is that regulatory commission, they also have to take care of that whenever there is a new proposal coming from the distribution side to upgrade their infrastructure to maybe to mitigate these problems, there a due consideration should be given. But at the same time, it should not affect the tariff so much so that the consumers are badly hit by the higher prices. So they have to make a justified decision. And so these are the various stakeholders we were discussing. So we have markets, we have operations, we have service providers, transmission, distribution, bulk generation, consumers. So let's talk about some ways. It looks a bit complicated, but there's a certain hierarchy as a result of which um, there is certain entities which have been divided based on different services they are providing. For example, if you talk about these ISOs and RTOs. Okay, so ISOs and RTOs are basically the independent the independent system operators, the regional transmission operators, the RTO. So what it basically does, it basically keeps on monitoring any transactions of the power, and they just try to see that whether these transactions are not violating any network constraint. Because any network, you might have studied that any network has some limitations on the amount of the power they control. So you can see that some energy transactions are pre-decided. They could be coming from some algorithm or some between the two parties, but you have to make sure that they are not violating the network limits. So that is something which is taken care by ISO and RTO. And then we have demand management side, DMS. Then we have meter demand management side, and DMS is also take care of the distribution operations. Your demand response enterprise bus is there in the distribution side. For the service provider, these are basically the people who take care of providing the information. It's a ICT business. So this is taken care by these people. So of course, as you know that whenever there is a infrastructure increase, so there is always a complexity which increases. So we have to take care of where the control should be done. So all these kind of things needs to be taken care. The the distribution side, the consumer side, we have different other features. For example, you can have appliances, you can have storage, you can have customer equipment. So these I just wanted to show these things just to tell you that there are different levels at which the control is being done and being monitored, and then not only just controlled and monitored but also effectively synchronized with each other. So there are various things which are involved. So the smart grid may look or sound good, but it's not about like 50 years or so. That has to be done for sure. But that is with that they all should communicate with each other reliably and take a collective effort to improve the health of the entire system. So now the question is why we should choose smart grid? Because as we said, that whenever there is an infrastructure improvement that needs to be done, there could be various drivers, and the drivers could change from place or could change from um, country also. So there could be various drivers, and based on that, we need to make some changes in our infrastructure. So the idea is that why we should choose the smart grid, because with this improvement in the infrastructure, we can have more control over the flow of the power and flow of the information. Okay, and based on this flow of the power and flow of the information only, we can have both the decentralized as well as centralized control. So there has to be a clear-cut hierarchy which needs to be decided, that which entity will control what, and that is the reason why we have this much complex stakeholder figure. So there is a clear-cut hierarchy which needs to be followed. Okay. Then we have what are the different parts of this smart grid functionalities. Sorry for the poor quality of the figure, but you can see that various smart grid um, things that may include is first of all it is AMI, advanced metering infrastructure. And we can have the renewable generation, power quality. We have energy storage, demand side management, outage management system is also there. Then we have distributed generation. So generally, when we do any course in the smart grid, we try to touch upon all these different aspects. So whenever I offer a course in smart grid, I talk about the advanced metering infrastructure, I talk about demand side management, various algorithms for that. Where for the renewable generation, we talk about the forecast methods. For electric vehicle, we talk about bidirectional converters and their ability to communicate with the major, communicate with the system. For power quality management, how we can do that. Okay, for the outage management, we can see that how we can rectify this problem. Energy storage, how we can manage it. Managing the energy storage is a big part. So all these functionalities comprise the smart grid operation. Okay, so this is the need for the smart grid architecture and design framework. So we, as we just said, that these are the different things which are important, and as we said that um, the important part is that what can be given and at what planning stage. For example, we should not give, although we are saying that the customer is able to choose the power from the generation, we should not be able to allow the customer to have so much power that it can even tamper with their emission, because customer does not have all the information. Eventually, it has to be some centralized controllers which has to decide about, okay, your feedback is that you have to get power from the PV panel, but maybe we don't have enough facility right now. So we will just try to address your situation as much as possible, but there could be some other ways by which we can always provide it. So we have to see that how much rights we should have. And this all have to be done at the planning stage itself. And we also said that the different systems which are there to deliver the best possible benefits, and we have to make sure that the minimum need is that they should be interoperable, because the communication technology, and not only this communication technology, various others like building management, control methods for the PV, um, and various types of cyber security methods, they are changing very rapidly. So we should not have a system which is operating at this point of time, but may suddenly go non-functional because of the lack of interoperability of the system, maybe down the line from 1 year. Generally, it is the lifetime of a smart grid is around 15 years or so. And after that, you may try to attempt to change some of the infrastructure. But at least minimum for 15 years or so, we should have good operation of the system. So, use cases and information exchanges, as we said, you can have operations at different level. For example, you can have meter operations, you can have the distribution grid and control. Sorry. distribution gradient control. You can have DG, renewable generation, which could be there. So you can see that there are a lot of different information exchanges which are being done. So I think the slide is pretty much self-explanatory. DERs are nothing but the distributive energy resources. So in the renewable generation side, you can see that whenever there's a fault in the circuit, DER connection to healthy section should be cleared by fast circuit breaker tape and the reverse protection of DER connection, creating an insufficient islanding. So islanding is again is important. That's a sub part of the microgrid. So microgrid, you know that they can operate either in grid connected mode or in islanded mode. So sometimes this islanding is intentional, sometimes it is unintentional. Whenever there is an unintentional islanding, we need to identify that whether the grid side has been disconnected from our generation from our rest of the distributed energy resources, because some IEEE standards say that if you have a disconnection from the grid side, immediately the DERs of distributed energy resources should stop sharing the power into the stop feeding the power into the grid. Due to some various reasons, I don't want to go into the detail of that. But these are the part of renewable integration. And at the grid side operation, you have to estimate the load flows in the areas, and effective load management has to be done. Whenever it comes to the meter side, then we have to do the customer billing, load monitoring, so various hierarchies. Of course, we should also detect the tampering and theft at the customer side. They should all have various operations at different levels, and they should communicate with each other for the smooth operation of the entire system. So, what are the basic smart grid ingredients? Well, things. The point is that things are improving continuously. So at the soul, it is of course the smart grid, but then we have standards, then we have distributed control, we have system architecture. What do you mean by distributed control is that you can have only two kinds of controls. One could be centralized control and there could be distributed control. Because whenever you are controlling something, for example, if it is the real or reactive power flow into the grid, out of the grid, it is important that you should control the hierarchy. But whether this particular control needs to be going to the central side or it has to be tackled that way, or you can have some sort of a local control which can take care. For example, if there is a fault into the system, then power flows in the different lines have changed. Then you have to find out the way how you can deal with this situation, how you can mitigate the fault. Of course, that is something which needs to be communicated with the central side. So then after that, the rerouting of the power can be and it can be tackled. For example, if there is any harmonic injection into the system due to some power electronic loading at the PCC point, whether that control needs to be done by the central side, the answer is no. If you see that there are harmonics generated and they are above the standard regulation limit, then you can give the commands to the local inverter based STATCOMs or something which can feed the power, feed the reactor power, or take care of the harmonics into the system for future. Okay, so this actually shows the smart grid parameter. The base of this smart grid parameter is the asset management. So, as I said earlier, that any entity in the entire smart grid, they can have some sort of a requirement to buy some new assets. Maybe it is because the state of the art equipment which are working for health is not good, or they just want to add some new ICT as the new infrastructure. So they need to have certain asset management. And then we have something which is called we have infrastructure management, which takes care of the enterprise services bus. Enterprise services bus is nothing but where all the information is collected at one point, and then from that centralized location, they're able to take the different the different information. Then whichever, for example, if the information is applicable to the grid side, then the grid side can take that information. If it is for the meter operation, then that side can take that information. Uh, about the asset management, we have the telecommunication infrastructure. As I said, that the overall ICT, which is the information communication channel, that can be based on the local area network also. It can have wide area network. It can have the system-wide information, the wide area network. For the local area network, you have the information about the local system. Then you have circuit topologies, for example, for the feeder substation design. And then we have various other things. So this is just one way to include, one way to how you can show this thing. And then by the way, this includes the energy management system, so how the energy is being managed. Then we have, as we go on to the top, you can see smart meter, NDMS, distribution, automation, substation automation is there. Then we have primary network, distributed generation, storage is there. And then on the top we have microgrid, demand response. This yellow side is actually showing the customer side application. So you can see that some of these things are totally from the customer side. Some of these are totally blue, which are for the utility side. So these are the ones which are controlled by the utility. For example, DMS, substation automation, VAR regulation, operational frequency, they are generated on the utility side. But for the distribution automation, smart meter, network, demand response, even the customer is involved in this one. So you can see that half of them is yellow, half of them is red. That is one way of showing the smart infrastructure. Now, if you go on to the IEEE website and you look for this smart grid framework, you will see basically this seven levels or 7 models. So you have the model for the generation, transmission, distribution, for customers, operation, service model. So this figure is not very good quality, but these are the main 7 important smart grid domains which the smart grid has. So let me just talk about the smart grid distribution scheme. So far we have as I discussed earlier also, the government of India, they did some sort of a survey to find out that various
Excuse
levels.
me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you, sir. Your volume is very low.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. It is okay.
Okay. So when we talk about smart grid distribution is a key, I said that the government of India, they actually did a survey. And in this survey, they actually tried to identify that in various sectors of generation, transmission, and distribution, how the investment is going. And then they also found out that there is a significant investment which goes in sometimes into generation and transmission, but the distribution side is the most neglected one. And you see, the most of the problems, as I said, they are on the distribution side only. For example, billing, theft, losses, okay, proper infrastructure to provide power to the consumers. These all problems are there at the distribution side. So already this distribution side, they are plagued with so many problems. If you tell them to develop themselves, they will say, well, they are hardly able to function. Then how we can expect us to even do some development, whether it is from the infrastructure side or from the communication side, ICT development, it is difficult. So that's why the government of India, they have started this APDRP programs, where the major interest is to improve the to provide the funding to various distribution agencies to improve their operations. And one of this example is this APDRP program, which is being used by Andhra Pradesh. what they do is they have this HVDS, high voltage distribution system. So what is this high voltage distribution system? Is that they, rather than having low voltage lines, they have all the way 11 kV transformer sitting right at the distribution. So as a result of which, drawing the power from these low voltage transmission lines and theft issues, they are completely mitigated. But that is, of course, it is possible due to the funding from the government. Second could be monitoring of the transformers, because many of these transformers, they have various parameters like temperature of the oil which is flowing through them, and various sorts of eddy currents which are flowing. So these all may be responsible for the aging of the transformer. And then you will see that suddenly some transformers may stop operating because of continuous exposure to different kind of scenarios. So it is important that we should be able to identify the health or the monitoring of the transformer. So even with this APDRP program, some of the distribution agencies, they have been able to monitor this. And also, as I said, the tempering of the meter is also one thing which needs to be clearly identified and being communicated to the distribution. So these are some of the main reason why I say that smart distribution is the key. I will just try to quickly touch upon demand response, and then I will take any questions which are there from your end. So the idea is that why we have this demand response? Well, first of all, of course, we have this peak loading. So peak loading is the time when you have a very high amount of demand going on, and then as a result of which the generating stations, they have to meet this demand. And what you generally have is that in electricity market you have something which is called as merit order dispatch. So what this merit order dispatch is, that generally whenever the spot market, whenever the generation and distribution, where both demands are matched, then this decides the price at which you can get the supply from this generation. So of course, in this generation order, there will be some units which can provide you power at a very low cost. Some generation units. For example, you will see mainly this wind, and so they are generally at the lower white bottom. So you can get the price from these um, systems at a very low cost. But as you go keep on going, so then you can have a slightly higher price from the coal-based generation. Then you can have even higher price from the nuclear-based generation and so on. So we can see that as the demand increases, you may have to go from one order dispatch to the next order, which is slightly costlier than the previous dispatch order. So as a result of which, why we are saying that as you go into the peak side, the generation may have to fire on some power plants at a distant side from which getting the power is very costlier. So as a result of which, you have in some countries this time-based pricing or dynamic pricing. Okay, and just to give you an example, that generally the megawatt power which is available in USA maybe is around $30 to $50. Okay. But in the peak time, it can go as high as $1,000. You can say that there are high stakes involved. So in this kind of dynamic pricing, even if you are able to convince some of the customer side that okay, since anyway we have to pay this much of price to satisfy your load demand, how if you just curtail your demand by a certain amount of kilowatts, and if few of the customers are able to say, it's just huge saving in terms of price. So that's why it is important that demand response is also very important for the proper operation, and from the customer side participation. It's very important. Okay, so these are some of the smart grid initiatives which are there in India. So we have this India Smart Grid Forum. I highly encourage you all to maybe go search for this website, which is the India Smart Grid Forum. There are various good things available. There are various documents which are available, which um, identify the key things in terms of how the smart grid is activities are going on from the Indian context. So we have this ISGF, which is the India Smart Grid Forum. It's a non-profit voluntary consortium of public and private stakeholders. And we have different groups which are working in this for the smart grid studies. And we have ISGTF, which is India Smart Grid Task Force. So this actually serves as the government's focal point for activities related to smart grid, and many utilities have also have started individual activities at different levels. Okay. So as I was saying that you can have all the different uh, entities which are which is how they look into the smart grid. For example, when you talk about government and regulators, how they look into the smart grid is that they will have satisfied customers, financially sound utilities are there, and the tariff neutral operation is there, and reduction in emission intensity. That's how the government looks into it. How the utilities look into it is that you have reduction in the T&D losses, you can have peak load management, you can have the self-healing, you can have renewable integration, which is possible. So these are the expectations from the utility side, from the smart grid. From consumer side, we can say, of course, we can have power for everyone. We can have no power cuts. So there is no need of DG sets anymore or inverters. We don't have inverters in the foreign countries. Okay, the reason is that there's 24/7 power. The power is well managed. And of course, one of the other reasons is that the requirement or don't need any voltage stabilizers. We don't have any voltage fluctuation. So we have different expectations from different states. So in a holistic way, I can say that the priorities from Indian context is that we should have lesser power cuts and the prosumer enablement. This prosumer term is, I should have actually explained this earlier, but this prosumer actually is coming from the combination of the word consumer plus producer. Because nowadays, we have this PV panels installed maybe in our building or even at our home rooftops. Panels are there. And you're not just consuming the electricity from the utility, but also if you have excess power, you can feed the electricity, feed the power into the grid. So you're not just consuming, but also producing. So that's why this term called prosumer. So we should have the facilities to enable the prosumer in the smart grid environment. And then, of course, from the utility side, as I said, that you should reduce the T&D losses. You should have revenue cycle optimization. You should have managed the peak power demand response, and integrate the renewable and distribution generation efficiently. So this is the NSDF vision. So the idea is to transform the Indian power sector into a secure, adaptive, sustainable, and digitally enabled ecosystem by 2027. And we should have basically the quality power on demand for all by 2027. I encourage you to go and search for proposal made by ISGF for this national smart grid mission. There are some various roadmap also. So this link is there. Um, Lots of this content comes from one of the very famous professor from IIT Bombay, Professor Khaparde. He is a pioneer in this area of smart grid. Is actually also, I think, board committee member of this ISGF community. So I would recommend you that you can read his papers. He is actually from IIT Bombay, so he has done some lot of good investigations, and we have some collaborative research work with them. So with this, I would like to basically end my presentation, ending slightly earlier at around 12:40, so that I can answer any questions if you have. So I would request the moderator to maybe see if the If you are able to ask the question via chat, that is also okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Uh, Very good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Uh, Myself, Professor Manju Gupta from Oriental College, Bhopal.
Ji, boliye.
I want to ask one question. Sir, you have discussed about demand response.
Ji.
So, what kind of algorithm we can use in the demand response for the domestic user? Means it is based on some mechanism which is based on source based, means we will control the source, or it will be based on the load of the customer, sir.
No, there is something which is called as incentive driven demand response. Okay. So incentive driven demand
Yeah, sir.
response is that, for example, when there is any, of course, the idea, the objective is to maybe make the load curve more flatter. That is the sole objective. Because
Right.
if the load curve is flatter, then there is then I would say that the operation and the reliability and resiliency of the system increases, even the efficiency improves. So you can help. You can help in that situation by taking some actions in demand response where you are providing the consumers an incentive that if there is a peak uh, um, load is there, then in that condition you may try to um, reduce your loading condition. So that is called as incentive driven load response, which is there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then there is something which is
So
but in this case it is consumer participation is anticipated. Okay, but then there could be something
yeah,
which
yeah,
could be purely from the distribution end, where they can see that if the peak demand is approaching to the max limits, as a result of which even the system stability is on the stake, then in that case they can forcefully they can decrease the response, as a result of which you may be able to regulate your demand properly. Okay. So I would request you that if
yeah,
you
sir.
if you are interested, then
Yeah, yeah.
you can look into this paper, the second paper which has been given, which is the review of the demand response under smart grid paradigm. It's a very good paper.
Okay, okay. So it is written by that means IT professor, some
Yes. So Professor
Veljapalli, I
Khapade,
think, and Veljapalli, I think. Valjipalli,
yeah.
sir, I think he has written that.
Yes, but the co-author is also this Professor Khapade. Vedanta Pradhan is also my
Okay, okay, okay.
friend. So I've read this paper. It's a very good paper. So just go through it. I think it will clear majority of your doubts.
Right. Sir, at that time when we are talking about the demand response at the customer end, so we can use the solar energy at the time of peak load also. Means whenever the peak load comes, we are curtailing the
Definitely,
load. Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
So on that
But
time we can utilize the solar in a scientific way. Like,
yes, but you have to also make sure that it is intermittent in nature. So either you can use solar or you can use storage.
yeah, yeah.
So it has to be. It always comes in that how you are managing your resources.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we have to either we have to control the load, or we have to manage the source.
Generally, in the demand response, various algorithms are there which could control different entities. For example, if the response is in a way that for example, if the demand is increased, then you can switch from, as I said, that in the merit order generation, you go from
Yeah,
one sector of generations to another maybe set of generation. So that is the reason why your prices also increase. So that is a most crude way of defining the demand response thing. So you are saying that can we choose PV system? Of course, if that is able to provide the power at a lower rate, we would like to have get the power from the solar PV. But then again, it is important that we should that the power should be available to us at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
So it could be from any side. It could be from the response side that we are increasing or changing the different stages of the generation, or it could be demand side also. That based on the limited amount of generation, now we are trying to control the demand in a way that we are able to reach at the optimal point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sir, for a researcher, what software they can use for this demand response and all?
I think you can use
Yes.
MATLAB. In MATLAB
MATLAB.
also there are various features which are available.
Okay, okay. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, are there any other questions?
Is there any other questions from the participants?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Myself, Rajeshwari Agrawal. I want to ask a question. Is blockchain technology also a part of smart grid? Or can we say it is the part of smart grid?
No, when you say is it a part of smart grid, I don't know how to answer that. But definitely the
Because
blockchain offers various advantages which could be read to have a smoother operation of the smart grid. Okay. As I said, I mean, for example, if tomorrow in your neighborhood somebody has installed some PV panels on the top of their roof, now as a customer you should be able to say that okay, I don't want to take power from the utility, I want to get power from my neighborhood. But are there any technologies or are there any methods in place to have a peer-to-peer energy transaction between you and your neighbor? If the answer is no, then maybe blockchain can help, because then it can be helped to decide that what should be the power, what should be the agreement between the two parties. So all these kind of questions can be answered or can be properly handled by blockchain transactions. I hope I answered your question.
yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else?
Are there any other questions from the participant side?
So what I can do is I can stop the sharing.
Yes, sir, you can.
Stop sharing. Okay.
So, shall we wind up, sir?
Yeah, it's up to you.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Professor Dr. Prashant Agnihotri, for sharing your knowledge with us. We would like you to visit in person as soon as this COVID problem diminishes, and we would like to conduct a webinar or workshop under your guidance. So it will be a pleasure for us to be a host. And
So where is this Trinity College in Bhopal located, by the way?
sir, it is located near Kokta Bypass, Raisen Road.
Acha, acha. So I have visited, I mean, Bhopal many times,
Okay, fine.
especially in the RGPV
Okay, okay. Sir,
OIT campus.
it is near Oriental Lilin City.
Okay, okay.
Right.
I'm actually from Gwalior only, so
Okay, okay. Nice. Very nice. Fine. So thank you, sir. Thank you so
okay.
much.
Thank
And for rest of the participants, there is an instruction and there is an announcement. We will be meeting at around 1:40, 1:45, and the next session will be started from 2 p.m. And again, a common instruction for all of you that please make your video on, and also please keep your mics off so that the expert doesn't get disturbed. Thank you, everyone. The link for the next part will be, afternoon session will be shared in the WhatsApp group. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.